coming with legal advice, coming from legal advice. The response is, I can't talk to you because then I have to recuse myself from this decision. And I remember Scott Henty some time ago saying, I want everyone to know that I have talked to this neighborhood and I don't feel that I can't exercise my judgment in a non-partial way because of that conversation. I'm still able to cast my vote in a rational way. I don't feel I've been influenced by that, but I want everyone to know I've had these conversations. And I like that approach a whole lot better than I like this new approach that I'm hearing, because I think it honestly is disenfranchising neighbors from being able to be represented by their council members. But I'd love to have your take on that. I know Stephanie's listened very carefully to me, so maybe she'd like to contribute. And I see the councilwoman here also leaning forward, so maybe that's a group discussion. I'd love to. I'm very concerned that we are cutting off a significant part of city government from its citizens, and from a neighborhood advocate's point of view, that puts the majority of the power in the developers' hands, because they're the ones with the money to be persistent about, and to be able to hire attorneys, to be able to follow through that whole legal process all the way up through the courts if necessary, whereas most neighborhoods can't do that. So I think.
So the question is, how can council better represent the residents when they have a development issue that
Right.
is
And
progressing through the system?
Right, and I think that's an overly narrow interpretation myself. I'm not a lawyer, but I think it's an overly narrow interpretation. Hi, Kevin.
Nope.
That I think is playing it safe on the city attorney's point of view, so that nobody gets in trouble from the city. But I'd be much more comfortable with a council member who would say, tell me everything you don't like about that development, and I'll talk to the developer too, and I'll make up my own mind. I think that's why we elect people. But anyway.
I think that takes leadership away. That's one of the reasons we don't have much leadership, because you're told if you lead, you're going to be in trouble. And I mean, there's some wrong thinking going on here.
My feeling too.
I can give a couple of opinions on that. I'm not sure it's valid to use Scott Henty because he's got so much experience. But that gets back to the, talking about the experience. But when you deal with government, it's a lot easier to say no. It's just easy either to pass something or just say no. Some of the dynamics that I can hope will change with the new council is when they just talk about their roles and responsibilities, land use needs to be maybe number one, if not number one.
It's certainly very.
And if so, what do they need to have as policymakers to do the land use? Well, one is, a reliable attorney, and two is being informed on the process and how much that they can say, how much that they can listen.
Right.
It's my understanding that if I were to talk to somebody about a development that is what they call a quasi-judicial, as long as I shared that with everybody, all the council members know that should be legally okay. Now, in this environment, I've never done that, but that's something that the new council can explore. I get with the attorney, say, hey, we are hamstrung, we are not serving the public here. We need to know how we can work within the constraints of this quasi-judicial. Quasi-judicial means you're sitting as a judge and jury when we have these issues come before us like a rezone. It's, we need to make a decision based on what's in the record. So everybody needs to have access to the same record, so when we make a decision, it's based on the same sort of information. It's not, this person had significant information, this person knows a developer, he got that. That's what they're trying to prevent. They're trying to prevent playing favorites. But when you get a whole bunch of new people in there, like we have, and they're told to say no, you're just going to play it safe. So that I would say, make that, when you talk to the new council, when they have their first town hall or whatever, say, how are you guys going to manage this land use thing?
Sure. And just so you particularly know, I've been saying to Kono members, or to any neighborhood that asks, you know, that's an interpretation from council's point of view. But you are entitled to talk to your representative, your council member, on anything you wish to talk to them about. If they don't want to listen to you, that's their decision. But you shouldn't let yourself be, shouldn't let your freedom of speech be cut off by this very narrowly worded, very narrowly conceived opinion about what council can and cannot do. And I honestly think council ought to, you know, ought to have its own legal advice on that. I think it's too narrow an interpretation. I think it does damage to our system of local government.
And it can be improved on, yeah.
Absolutely.
It can sure be, but that's also, folks like Kono can, work to educate some of the old counselors, maybe the new counselors, as to why this is important and make that a priority.
Mhm.
Jill, that might even fall right into the 2016 strategic plan, you think? Could we frame land use in such a way to get more involved?
Well, I think
You think?
within the overarching goal of the infill committee, we could address that issue as far as trying to bring neighborhoods we are, to discussing how to bring
Right.
neighborhoods in earlier. I think the attorney is trying to be careful. As you may know, when a land use item comes to us in a quasi-judicial fashion, they ask each of us, have you had any conversations outside of this hearing? And we have to acknowledge it, and it's fine, and we can say just what you mentioned about Mr. Hente, but they, of course, are worried that when whatever happens, that the loser is going to use that as a reason to appeal, and so they're just trying to cover every base. And I mean, the council members, you're right, have to have the leadership to be able to hear both sides and know that they can be impartial.
When Jill and I get an email from somebody on this kind of an issue, we send it to the council administrator, which sends it to all council members and to the city planning office. That way, everybody has access to it. That is one way that I think the council's been educated to do that. We don't sit on emails like we used to just because we're ignorant. If I get something, I'm gonna give it to the council administrator, and she gives it to all the council members, and then it goes right to planning. So do it in writing, and you'll have a much better chance of getting that.
I think that's why
forwarded.
I think Kono is so important too. Because when you have people who gather together as one, it can be a watchdog, it can be an influencer, it can be a protector as well.
And I'll say this, even though Dave's gone, maybe part of your new position would be to communicate to the neighborhoods, give us your land use issues, find a way to get it to you, then you can make a record and you can pass it on maybe to the council administrator or to a council member, and start a record of things being recorded and give more people in the loop. That might be, I just tasked your new assistant.
Oh, okay.
I said something that you might want to consider is for Kono, find a way to communicate with the neighborhoods that have these land use issues, get their comments to her, and she can make a record, and then she can send it to the city, and then have a path there to trace. Now, there's a lot of ways that could go wrong, so I'm just using that as a topic, but it might be something that.
Sure. Recently, honestly, Kono has been trying not to be so much the spokesperson for a neighborhood as the facilitator of that neighborhood's own presentation of its issues. And that actually comes from some councilwoman, I believe, said to me one time, Dave, we need to see more, need to see other people than you up here. So I took that as a good warning. But I do think it's more effective, honestly. And there are times when neighborhoods don't agree, and we do not want to be the group that is taking one side or another when neighborhoods don't have consensus.
So don't do that, you guys agree, but that's good, yeah.
Right?
Now I'm getting scared. Yes, Barry?
First, thank you for your service to our community and to your military experience, but I'd like to know what your thoughts are about the new council members and the new mayor yet to be elected. How optimistic are you about this community, this city moving forward and actually accomplishing some goals in the years ahead?
I'm gonna tell a story that happened to me last fall that I hope, in a positive light, will address exactly what you just said. I was on a trip with some folks, and I was talking to a commercial real estate broker, the person who runs an office here in town. And this was a time when there was, I guess I would say, the same amount of friction between the council and the mayor. And it could probably be safe to assume if you're on the city council, you probably don't play golf with Steve Bach. And in my case, that's true.
You don't play a lot of golf.
If the guy ran marathons, we could do that. But this person didn't really know me, but just, everybody tries to fill out a council member to see if they can, well, just to see what you do. So we're having a beer, and he says, you know, I'm glad Steve Bach's the first strong mayor, and I voted for him. And that, you should probably see what would happen, and I don't think I did a whole lot, and he says, Val, you know why? I said, no. He goes, now the community knows what kind of personality, not what kind of person, but what kind of personality may not be a good fit for the mayor. And I would broaden that to what council's done for 4 years. We've done a lot. It hasn't been as good as it could be, and probably a lot of mistakes. We as a community know, well, let's not do that again. You know, we learned. Now, getting back to the new mayor and the new council members, you got someone like a Merv on council and someone like a Jill that has lived through this. You've got two new council members. So the good news is you don't have 6, you have 2. The bad news, or the not as good news, is that the people that are still there are probably wondering why their way didn't work. So, but I am optimistic that a lot of education has already gone on with those folks, in that we're going to have a new style of government. It's easy to blame things on personalities. Don't forget, council has personalities too. And I'm sure I rubbed people wrong. But Barry, I am optimistic with, and I guess if I'm going to play the other side of the extreme, to be a pragmatist, we can't do much worse. So we're going to do better.
There's only one way to go.
Yeah, for us to do a whole lot worse, it'd take a lot more effort.
Do you sense that the newest council and the veterans feel that way too, that they understand they have to do better?
I don't know that.
That's a great question.
Yeah, that is a good question, Stephanie.
Because we all know it.
I don't know. One of the things I've learned in this position, and it's, boy, is it awfully embarrassing, kind of, but you learn a lot of self-awareness, you know, how you may come across. And if you don't develop that as an elected, well, you can really just, you can only hear what you want to hear. Yeah, that's, so I'm not sure about that, Stephanie, if other council members, but, boy, we'll just have to see what.
Do they ever, though? I mean, legislatures by their nature are 9 separate individuals trying to have a personality.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Make that
it's
work.
been my experience that they never have a personality, that you have 9 separate personalities, and there's always something that's just sort of out there. And sometimes they come together, but most of the time it's pretty muddled. So that's part of the reason why I was in favor of doing the strong mayor, because we needed to have some kind of personality at the head of this whole thing.
And I think also that one person whom you can hold accountable
Yeah.
for things that go right or go wrong. You can say, okay, Bach didn't keep the streets up, you know, and I think, and didn't support stormwater for an issue that you and I are pretty important, pretty excited about.
Me too.
And everybody And I think most of the business community said, you know, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. We're not gonna support him for mayor anymore. I think it worked in that case. I think we're at our time,
Okay.
aren't we? But if you wanna stay longer, we'd be glad to keep talking.
What, I'm trying to think, I have a 5 o'clock yoga. Okay, I can
You know,
wow, yeah.
Barry said something that I think we all want to say, which is, we are very grateful for your very selfless work as a council member. And I think, I personally know how much this has cost you in lots of ways. And very grateful for your sticking with it and giving it the very best you could, and we're a better city because of it.
Yeah.
I think we've got some.
Erect a statue for you in the.
So you need some off the record questions now?
Just, I think you all know this, but we have our